Hey, this is Math 2, Unit 10, Worksheet number 4, looking today at intercepts. So that means we're looking at places where it crosses the x-axis or the y-axis, some kind of graph where it crosses and makes those points. In this first page, we're really just looking at where exactly do these intercepts happen, or if they happen at all, okay? So just kind of getting familiar with some things here. So let's take a look here at some points and see what we have. All right, so for the first one, we have a point happening right here, and we have a point happening right there where they're crossing the x and then the y. The x is crossing the axis right there at where x equals 2, -2 I should say, -2, and y equals 0. That's the x-intercept. The y-intercept happens right here, and that's where x equals 0, but y is at 1, 2, 3, -3. Okay, so x-intercept, remember, is where y is 0, and y-intercept is where x equals 0. Here, our x-intercept occurs at this point, and so x is at a value of 1 to -3, and y is at 0. And the y-intercept happens here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 for the x, and y, and sorry, back it up there. Sometimes it's just early in the morning. So our x value is 0 and our y value is 6 for that one right there. For number 3, is there an x-intercept in this line? Nope, there is none. It never crosses the x-axis. The y-intercept occurs here when x is 0 and y is 1. No problem. Looking at a quadratic here, we have a couple places, right? We have an intercept, and an intercept. So where is it crossing x at? It crosses here at -2, 0. Also crosses here at 2, 0. So there's 2 x-intercepts. The y-intercept is here, and that's at 0, 1, 2, 3, -4. All right. Same is true for 5, right? Same idea. Crossing here and here, the x. So x happens at -1, 0, and 1, 2, 3, 0, and the y happens right here, okay, and that's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So at 0, 6 is the y-intercept. For this one, we have a line going there, and it crosses the x right there. So we have an x-intercept at 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, and the y, it never does, so we would say none. Over here, x-intercept, here's x, there is none, it never crosses, so there's none. And the y-intercept only occurs right there, which is at 1, 2, 3, which we might say 0, 3. This is an interesting one right here, kind of cool. So we can see it gets closer to the x, but the idea here is it never touches. So there's going to be no intercept. It's kind of just gets closer and closer forever, but never does reach it. That's the way that works. Does the intercept y? Yes, it does right there at 0, 1, and that's our intercept. Kind of cool. For this next one, when it touches there, here's where it touches the x-axis right there. So is that an intercept? Sure is. It counts when it touches. So at 1, 0, there's an intercept. For the y-intercept, it occurs right there only, and that's when x is equal to 0 and y is equal to 2. All right, moving up over here. This one curves up, never reaching the x-axis, never does that. So we would say that there's none for the x-intercept. The y-intercept is located right there, and that's at 0, 1, 2 for that one. Here, back to some basic ones. Our x-intercept happens here when x is equal to 3 and y equals 0. And our y-intercept happens here when x equals 0 and y equals 1, 2, 3. And finally over here, our x-intercept occurs there at 0, 0, and our y-intercept also occurs right there at 0, 0, right? We're crossing both of them at that same point, and that's the idea for that part, okay? On the next page, you just need to answer some questions based upon what we just did. And for this part here, you need to state whether it's sometimes true, always true, or never true. And if it's sometimes, give an example. So you can really look at that first page to answer this question, these questions here. I'm going to let you do that part on your own, and I'll move down to the part down below. Okay, calculating intercepts without graphing, calculate what they might be. So let's take a look. I'll look at the even ones here. All right, so actually, nah, I'll do odds because I always tell teachers I'm gonna do the odds. Okay, so the x-intercept. In this case right here, our x-intercept is gonna be located. X happens when what? When y equals 0. So when y equals 0, let's do the x part here first of all. We would say 0 equals 2x plus 5. And I'm solving for x. That's the idea if you want to do it algebraically. Okay? So my x-axis is going to be, I subtract 5, so negative 5 equals 2x. Divide both sides by 2, so that negative 5 over 2 equals x. So when x is negative 5 over 2, y is equal to 0. That becomes my x-intercept. The y-intercept is going to be when x equals 0. So doing the y, we can say y is equal to 2 times 0 plus 5. 2 times 0 is 0, so y equals 5. So when x equals 0, y equals 5. So that's how algebraically you can see what those are going to be. Now, you also can kind of tell real quick here that the y-intercept is going to be that c value, isn't it? It's a little bit easier to look at the y value, right? So when I look at number 27, for example, what's the y-intercept? It's going to be 0, 12. That's not too bad, is it? Okay, so that works out pretty nicely there. Okay, and yeah, okay. Anyways, let's look over here for the x-intercept. The x-intercept is going to occur when y equals 0, so we set this equal to 0. So we'd say 0 for y equals negative 3x squared plus 12. We can go ahead and I can actually add 3x to both sides, 3x squared, to make this 3x squared equals 12. I could divide both sides by 3, so that x squared equals 4. And to find out the value of x, what number times itself gets you to 4? Right? Or I do the square root of both sides, whatever, however you want to think about it. Either way, x equals a 2. Now, here in this case, x is going to be plus or minus 2. Why is that? Well, 2 times 2 equals 4. That works. But so does negative 2 times negative 2. That equals 4. That tells me I'm going to have 2 intercepts. Yep, I'm going to have 2 intercepts. So at negative 2, y is equal to 0. And at positive 2, y is equal to 0. And again, we see that when I have things like, where am I at here? Yeah, there we go. So when I curve like this, which is not what this graph looks like, because it should be negative, so I should make it nice and be helpful here. So because it's negative, I'm going to have a curve like that. So what do I end up having x-intercepts? I can have it at 2 places like that. And I can have a y-intercept up there for the 1. Cool. All right. Okay, and the next one here, we have our vertex in this case here is at 2, 1. That's our vertex. So if I'm thinking about this, graphing this out here, I'm at 1, 2, and 1. I have a vertex here, and this is going to be positive, so I'm going to be curving up. So just a quick sketch, it looks something like this, doesn't it? Now looking at that sketch, am I going to have an x-intercept? Nope. I'm going to have none. No x-intercept is going to exist. Just not going to work. Y-intercept is when what? When x equals 0. So let's plug that into that equation and see what we have. So I'm going to do y equals 0 minus 2 squared plus 1 to find out the y-intercept. Right? I already know the x value is 0. So this is negative 2 squared is 4, and 4 plus 1 is 5. So our y-intercept will be at 0, 5. All right, you can do the same thing for the other ones over here, 24, 26, and 28 on your own, and that's it. See you next time.